in my home game, I've had to come to grips with handling a pretty big change for one of my player characters. They're becoming an undead creature, and I was thinking about how to mechanize that. And the concept that I've come up with involves negative levels, but it's not maybe the negative levels that you're thinking of. In this case, what I've been thinking about is giving my player a level in something, but that this level isn't necessarily positive for the character, but it takes up one of their level slots. Now, in most OSR games, there's basically unlimited levels, though usually there's some point, whether it's level 12, level 14, level 10, in which the increments where you start getting, just basically getting little standardized updates to your character. Oh, a couple more hit points, maybe another level slot, something like that, and you're not getting any large increases. I've always kind of liked level caps, say having a 12 level cap, or in, say, 5th edition, you have a 20 level cap. And the reason why I like those caps, even if I wanted to have something to allow you to get some little incremental increases afterwards, is I think because it really puts in mind to the character that, okay, or the player rather, okay, it's time to sunset this character and look towards something else. So if you've got basically a cap of, say, 12 for your character, then each one of those levels is important, whether you have capstone type abilities or not. You want to be a 12th level fighter. Well, what if you end up being 12th level, but you could only be a 10th level fighter because you have one level of lycanthropy and one level of plague sickness? And that's really the idea here, is to attach a level to the character, which then takes up one of their precious level slots. In my game in particular, my characters, or my player characters, they do have sort of abilities and powers that are somewhat reminiscent of 5th edition, though they're not as powerful and I run them differently, but they do have things that they unlock. If you now can't get to that top to unlock, you can't become the master druid, not because you can't find and defeat the one other master druid in the world, but simply because you took on these other things. Well, I think that really adds to your story, number one, and it gives you a reason maybe to how do I get rid of it? Hey, this lycanthropy, well, I get to turn into a wolf, but then it's also these other things I don't like, and now I can't reach the epitome of my class that I want to. Maybe I now have more of a reason to say, hey, I don't like this. Or in the case of a sickness or something else, I was thinking, well, what if I wanted to have a long-term disease effect? What could that do? Well, maybe you get this level of this disease, and instead of gaining hit points for that level, you gain no hit points. Maybe even you lose a little bit of hit points. And that's something that you can't really make up. Geez, now I go for my max cap maybe at the end of the day, and I've got 100 hit points now. The max cap I can really get to is 80, which may have a difference, of course, if you're not planning to get all the way to the end or not. It might not. But even if you don't, even if all that level cap stuff, capstone, whatever, at the end of the day doesn't matter, it's a way that you can really mechanize and show your character the permanent consequences of what's happened to them. It's part of their leveling. I kind of like that, because I've always thought of leveling as this idea of you moving through the world, and your levels kind of show all the stuff you've accomplished in the world. Well, sometimes you get these kind of setbacks, and now that's part of your sheet as well. You go from being a level 5 fighter to a level 5 fighter, level 1 werewolf. And maybe you like that. And look, I think for some of these, you could say, ooh, I'm just going to start leveling up my werewolf stuff and leave fighter behind. And that's great. And that's a choice in the world, which I like. And it has a mechanical side effect. By the same token, if you get something like, ooh, yeah, I've got level 1 plague. Oh, wait a minute. This lowered my saving throws versus other diseases. I lost a few feet off my movement because I've got joint issues. And, oh, my con is down too. Now I really want to look in the world of seeing how can I get rid of this, but maybe I can't. It still becomes part of my story that I can look at the end of the day and say, yeah, I was fighter 3, plague, or whatever they had, plague 1, and then whatever happened to me. But it really becomes sort of part of that written book of your character. Now, this is going to work best in games that allow some kind of multi-classing. I think you can slot it in, even if you just have single classes all the way through. I think you can still work that in there. But I think when you're multi-classing, it maybe opens up some more opportunities, but maybe not. I don't know. It's really kind of up to you. I haven't really thought about what multi-classing would look like in my homebrew version of Basic Expert, because it just hasn't come up, and I don't haven't felt the need to rule on something that no one's asked for yet. If it does come up, then I'll figure it out then. In terms of this, I'm excited to figure out, well, what is this kind of level 1 template for this undead creature? And what does it mean going forward? Am I going to allow my player character to continue on their old class? Or now are they on this different path until they can stop it? This is something that they sort of signed up for, but it marks a big change. So in this case, I might say, you're done with your other class. Now you're on this undead creature class unless you do something about it. And whatever they do about it might undo those class levels, these new class levels of undead creature. Maybe it'll just stop what they're doing there. Maybe it'll even turn into something else. I want to leave it wide open because I'm really excited to see how the player is going to take to this and run with it, and how they just going to decide to handle it. But I really thought that this was a great way of me saying, okay, how can I organize these effects, these consequences that I want to have, and then how can I really match it with everything else that's going on? And I thought this kind of negative level, almost having a class as a condition, if that makes sense, or a condition as a class, was a really great fit for me. If this seems intriguing to you and you want to take it and run with it, I'll be curious to see what you come up with. Let me know. I thought it was an interesting idea, so I thought I'd throw it out there. If I do develop it into something that I think has some sort of polish that other folks could use, maybe I'll post it somewhere. In the meantime, I should be playing this week, so I may be able to let folks know, if you're interested later on, how this worked out. That was my idea. What do you think? Game on. Talk to you later.